Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new rendition of the weekly wrap-up. This will be the third weekly wrap-up stream that we do. It's what we do every single Sunday, where we kind of cover the events throughout the week and wrap it up. So make sure you guys like the stream down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well if you are not yet subscribed. But you guys know the drill. We start at 100 likes. We also have a goal for the stream, 20 super chats. We want to keep the conversation going, so feel free to support the stream, support the channel by sending in super chats. And in today's stream, we got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about the recent cartel strike on Venezuela, and the libertarians are not happy about that, as well as the usual suspects on the left. But people like Rand Paul, there does need to be a conversation to be had about that. We've talked a lot about Massey, and that's true. Trump has hit Massey. Rand Paul kind of flies a little bit under the radar, and he kind of is like revered by a lot of people because of his father. But there comes a time when we have to just understand what's going on here, because he doesn't get it. And he really showed in the most just eighth grader mindset way possible that he has an eighth grade level mindset, as many libertarians do. I think a lot of people, they start off as very libertarian, and they think that just lowering the size of government's going to fix all our problems, and then they wake up. This guy's like in his 60s. He doesn't get it. Like, even Ron Paul, I'm sure, understands, past a certain point that you can't just, get the government out of the way realistically, and then everything is going to be fine. We're going to win. We're going to have our country back. We're going to have our society back, our culture back. Not how it's going to work. We'll also talk about the economy. We talk a lot about good news. I think it's time we touch on some not so good news, but also kind of quell the panic, because it does seem like these numbers are not that good. And that's just how it goes. I mean, you've had a sluggish economy for a while. Now the jobs numbers are not looking too great, and we understand that, and we'll talk about it. What does Trump need to do? What will Donald Trump do? We'll talk about both of them. Also, 2026 updates, and make sure, once again, guys, like the stream. Let's try to get it up to 100 before the face cam goes on. We're currently about 30 away But 2026 updates, we have a few of them. The midterms are right around the corner. We are 14 months away, and it's never too early because we're going to be talking about the first primary, or one of the first primaries on both sides, which is going to be huge. And we're talking about the state of Texas as well. So Texas has the first primaries in March. That's the first for Congress, for the governor, for Senate. The Senate primary is definitely the big one that we'll be focusing on, but you have other news out of Alaska and New Hampshire, and we covered a lot of it in the videos, but we have a video coming out tomorrow about a certain state that we'll be talking about a certain senator from, but Democrats believe that they can win the other Senate seat, which is just absurd. But we'll touch base on that. So make sure you guys like the stream. We got a good show for you guys tonight, and definitely we'll cover anything else you guys want to talk about in the Super Chats. And hopefully when we hit the goal, which we're already 15% of the way there, we are going to read regular chat. And I also am curious, what should we come up with for other milestones for the goals? Because it's not necessarily about hitting the goal. It's about making and enhancing the viewer experience. What exactly should the goals revolve around? Reading regular chat is good. We like to get input from, some of the people that don't really have the capability to send in super chats once we hit the goal. But definitely would like to see some possible suggestions for that as well. Because I do think it could actually make the streams a little bit more fun, whether it's like, back in the day, sometimes you did like political compass tests or rate values or something of that nature. I don't know what we would do now because it kind of seems like that's kind of a little bit passé, even though they still exist and some people do find them interesting. It hasn't been nearly as interesting as it was back then. I feel like people regarding ideology and electoral politics have kind of become a little bit like, I guess you would say, a little bit more pragmatic in a way, instead of trying to fit and box themselves into a specific ideology on certain things. A little bit more nuance possibly compared to 4, 5, 6 years ago. So either way, 14 likes away. Hit that like button down below, guys. We're almost there. We are almost there. We have 165 live viewers. I know it's late. We've been going pretty late, but I've been really busy lately. So again, it is what it is. Let's see here. We already have a moron troll in chat. He's going to go into timeout for a day because he's complaining about the sound, which is the same as it always is, by the way. But okay, whatever. Like the stream. We're 7 likes away. We're 7 likes away. We're not starting until we hit it. We're not starting. And again, if somebody wants to be contrarian and go under once we hit it, we still start. So they can do whatever they want to do. But either way, okay, there we go. We hit it. We finally got it. So we're going to begin. It's 10:36 Central Time. We're going to be starting off talking about J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance he absolutely went out there and just struck the opposition in more ways than one. I mean, you had a cartel member, you had a ship in Venezuela, the cartel, and they're these people that run drugs, and essentially they're narco-terrorists. They traffic drugs, hard drugs, into the United States and many other places that end up killing our people, our citizens, and we should not be allowing this to happen in this country. And we talk about war and we talk about peace, and people say this is supposed to be the peace administration or whatever, and it's like you can't not flex your muscles. You're not going to have peace. You're just going to get walked over. There's a difference. The neocons would say things like peace through strength, and they would never mean it. Whereas Trump is a pragmatist, he's a realist when it comes down to foreign policy. I don't know if he knows that he is, but that's the technical thought that he belongs to. He's America first, and he is a realist. For example, if he knows that he could strike something in Iran that would benefit the United States, let's say, this is a country that's an enemy of the United States, and they think they can build a nuclear weapon, I'm not saying they are, and he strikes it down, everybody panics, he's starting a war, and it doesn't lead to a war, I'm not going to sit up here and say that, this is like he's a neocon because of that. No, he's just, he's trying to walk the line. If you're not willing to strike things and you're willing to just, downsize the military too much to the point where it's like you're not going to be able to protect the country. The country is going to get walked over. And you could say, well, it's because of X reason or Y reason. I don't care what the reasons are. A lot of reasons have been baked into the cake, whether Trump is president, whether somebody else is president. We don't need to be, going out there and cutting our military budget 90% because that's called stupidity. Do I think we should cut waste in the military? Yes. Do I think we should be cautious when it comes down to entering new conflicts? Absolutely. Do I think we should work to get out of Yemen, to get out of the Middle East even more than we already have? Absolutely. Do I think we should close down some military bases in places like Europe? Yes, I think we have too many, and I think we could save a lot of money while doing it. But to say realistically that we're going to be able to go out there and cut 90% of the budget and we're not going to upgrade the weapons or whatever, it's stupidity. For what? A healthcare system that's not going to work? Seriously? Is this the road that we want to go down? When it comes down to foreign policy, it's not about peace or like a principled dovishness. That's never what Trump has been about. That's never what his movement has been about. And I told this to people during the Iran strike. They said I was just defending Trump. No, I've said it before his presidency, not about the Iran thing specifically. I think that, that was a little bit, I guess you would say, there's some room for criticism. I think people were blowing it out of proportion. And look what's happening now. Ceasefire, nothing is really going on. At the moment, we'll see. I'm not saying it can't happen again at a later date. But when it comes down to the Western Hemisphere, and this was symbolic when he picked Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, who had a lot of experience regarding diplomacy with countries in this hemisphere in the first term. It's not about regime change war in Venezuela. It's not about that. What it is about is going out there and making sure that we could take on these cartels and we could put America first. The Panama Canal, I'm not saying it's joining the U.S. under Trump's term, but the fact that he wants it to be a part of the U.S., what does that demonstrate? That is a policy that would help us controlling those shipping lanes. Same thing with Greenland. If we invaded Greenland, that would be like an America first invasion based on what we would want. I don't think we have to. I'm not saying he should. I'm not saying it's top priority, but I think he wants Greenland at some point. I think right now he's not focused on Greenland, but that would benefit the country. The amount of resources that we would have access to if we got Greenland and only we really have the capabilities of getting those resources, we would be paying down debt. This is what it's really about. It's about making sure that we go out there and put our own country first by really any means necessary. That's the principle here. It's not so much, oh no, we can't strike this guy. And you have one of the Krasenstein brothers. These guys are just essentially these 5'2" guys who go out there, and they were in Trump's first term the most annoying people on social media. They were some of the only liberals banned on Twitter under Twitter 1.0, and I really believe it's because they were so annoying that they made the left look bad. They would even do an AMA on Reddit and had both sides. This is Reddit we're talking about, clowning on these people. So this is where we're at with the state of affairs, where the left's best representation are some of their weakest people. J.D. Vance goes out there and says killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of our military. Something like that actually makes me very excited about the future potential of a Vance administration, because it showcases that he is, Vance is more of a policy guy. And he is somebody that understands where, Trump gets it, Vance gets it too. And I think that in terms of foreign policy, I think Vance has that potential to build on whatever we're doing in this administration, instead of, taking a step back to the Republican Party of old that's just going to try to tear it down. So Brian Krasenstein goes out here and says killing the citizens of another nation who are civilians without any due process is called a war crime. First of all, I don't think they understand the purpose of due process. Due process is found in the Fifth Amendment, and it's found in the 14th Amendment. And guess what it applies to and who it was written for? It wasn't written for a gangbanger pedophile that they called a Maryland man who was an illegal alien. It was not written for cartel members who have probably never been to the U.S., and their only connection to our country is smuggling in drugs that kill our people and our citizens. We cannot allow that. So J.D. Vance is right. He says, I don't give, and we will say it, I don't give a shit what you call it. And it's true. And we have a vice president that has balls, and he gets it. I mean, the last two didn't have balls. The last, I don't even know how many VPs going all the way back didn't have any set of stones, but JD Vance has a set of stones. He understands it, and he is good with the clapbacks, I will say. He's very good, and it's true. Why do we care? Why do we exactly care what these people have to think? Why do we care what the left has to say? The left is useless. These are not people that the right should spend any time and energy trying to placate. Placate the voters, but not these people. The voters that are on the fence, they look at this and they say, okay, well, you took out a drug dealer. You're going to make my life better. You're going to, that's crucial to stopping this epidemic and flow of drugs and opioids and everything of that sort. So when you look at that, that's a good thing. It's a great step in the right direction. And the fact that we have leadership now in this country that understands that is a breath of fresh air. It really is. JD Vance. But you have some people, they love losing. So many Republicans, they don't even vote with the Republicans very much, but they like losing. That's the problem. And it's been this way for a very long time, and it has shown zero signs of slowing down. But actually, it has shown signs of slowing down. But for some of these people specifically, they're getting worse and worse. That's the main point, and that's the point that I'm trying to convey here. And you have Rand Paul. We're told we have to like Rand Paul. Why do we have to like this guy exactly? Oh, but he's principled. He had good votes on certain things or whatever. And it's it doesn't matter if you're the one voice of dissent on certain things that you're right about, but it doesn't actually get anything done, and you just burn bridges and you don't work within the system to get anything done, and you spite in the most important election of our lifetimes the president who needs to win, who agrees with you on most things, and you decide to hold out and say you're not endorsing him for one reason or another, despite him running a campaign that was more in tune with your interests than 2016 or 2020. He's a clown. Rand Paul is a clown. Thomas Massie is a clown, and Rand Paul is a clown. The same people who decided to vote against Trump's agenda because it wasn't 100% perfect, because they don't understand politics. They'll talk about the debt ceiling, and they don't understand it's going to be raised at a certain point. Would you want it raised under Schumer at 60 votes, where it's going to be way worse, or do you want it raised now at 50? Which way do you want it, Rand Paul? We understand that Rand Paul is somebody that just doesn't get it. And you have Kentucky that has produced him and Massie. I don't understand. Kentucky's supposed to be a populist state of sorts, but this is the guy that gets elected. And Rand Paul essentially sides with Brian Krasenstein here, saying, JD, I don't give a S. Vance says killing people he accuses of a crime is the highest and best use of our military. Did he ever read To Kill a Mockingbird, he says? It's this guy's stuck in 8th grade in more ways than one. He really is. And he's did he ever wonder what might happen if the accused were immediately executed without trial or representation? What a despicable and thoughtless sentiment it is to glorify killing someone without a trial, he says. And here's the deal. Rand, what about Osama bin Laden? Well, when it comes to Osama bin Laden, was that a horrible abuse of due process? It's a globalist mindset to have. You have Americans, and our laws apply to our people. They don't apply to some random drug dealer, 99.999% sure is a drug dealer. The laws don't apply to people like that. They shouldn't. In fact, this is the only thing that should happen to people like that. If you have a competent and effective government, it's not about limited government. It's a very subversive concept. A limited or small government, they say. It's always a straw man from the left. Oh, small government. It's not about small, it's about effective. Yes, getting rid of the bureaucracy would make the government more efficient and work better for the people in many regards. I'm not saying that it's not a good idea to downsize and cut the fat and trim the bureaucracy. I agree with the libertarians on that. I think most people do. But when it comes down to the government can't use power against people that are harming the American people, that is where you lose me, and that's where you lose the country. That's what Democrats don't understand when it comes down to immigration. That's what libertarians don't understand when it comes down to basic measures to protect the country. They'll talk about all these things, and it's no, just arresting people or striking them, which is better. We understand. Oh, there's a 1% chance. I don't care. I look at the opportunity costs, and I see the fact This is going to benefit people, and it's going to save a lot of lives, because the tiny little bit of opioids that can come through the country, fentanyl, whatever, that's going to end up killing a lot of people. But this one strike will end up saving a lot of lives, and we don't have time for trials. We don't have enough resources for trials. In fact, if you want to talk about the small government aspect, we're not going to waste time hiring some judges to do these trials and waste, military resources trying to go in and capture and risk American lives in the process. Are you an idiot? I mean, yes, he is. I mean, we understand that, but it's ridiculous that we even have to have this conversation in 2025 and have these people. And yes, I support a primary challenge to this guy. He votes with the left on so many crucial things. His voting record looks the same as Elisa Murkowski, just for the principled reasons, and he doesn't get anywhere. He doesn't. You can have an America, you should have an America first vision for the country, and you should also be voting in line with the president that the people in the party have a 95% approval rating of. 95%. He doesn't get it. You can have criticism. I agree from time to time. But if you're always missing when it counts, you're a loser and you're not really helping. You're not an asset. You're somebody who's a drawback. You are. And we'll talk about the economy, because I think that that's an important topic that we need to cover, because we do. I mean, it's an important issue. And it's not entirely the greatest state of affairs, but you have so many people that act like this is new. Now, the jobs numbers were uniquely down. And we understand Donald Trump got rid of the former recorder at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because we understand she was awful during Biden. And they were like, oh no, he's getting rid of her so he can get a propaganda machine to fluff the numbers. That's literally what he got rid of. Like that, they don't understand that. He literally got rid of the propaganda machine. He got rid of the woman who was going out there and making sure that the numbers were inflated significantly. And they revised him down under the new person of the former person's report, which was not a good report. So the left takes the L there, but you have a weak economy in many regards. It's not Donald Trump's fault necessarily, because you've had a weak economy. The inflation rate under Biden was like over 9%. The inflation rate right now is below 3%, and that's with a massive amount of tariff revenue that we're getting, and that we're, it's partially on the consumer, it's partially on the corporations that are ending up paying all this stuff. It's partially, depending on the case, it could be on the other country, as Donald Trump states, because you do have, if you want to keep selling at the same price at the same rate, the foreign companies are going to have to eat the cost, but the majority of it's going to go on the corporation in general, or the consumer in some instances, on certain select goods. That's true. But you're not seeing a rapid spike of inflation. It's not going down anymore, but it's not really going up. And when it comes down to like manufacturing jobs and things like that, this is probably where I would say, if I'm Donald Trump, maybe you're going to have to get some deals done to work on certain things. And I think that's the whole purpose of the tariffs, is to get deals done. You want a deal done with China. You want a deal done with, the European Union. And he's gotten like intermediate deals done, and that's true. But you want to try to lower the overall rate, but also negotiate certain goods, certain like selective tariffs on certain things that you're going to have selling in this country, where we're going to be able to produce. Because it's a total lie that a first world country cannot have a manufacturing economy. Yes, we're not going to have textiles here or clothes here. But, if there's like luxury brands, they should be able to do that. And they have been really cheating, over the years. You look at a lot of these like Italian brands and things like that, luxury goods that are being made in countries that are not up to par. It's not just the United States that has done that, and that's a problem in and of itself for, in my opinion, the authenticity or quality of some of these things and those corporate margins. That's a whole other thing. But the main point is, when it comes down to televisions, when it comes down to cars, when it comes down to massive, big things, electronics, phones, for example, some of those manufacturing inputs have to come from certain places. So it is true that if you're going to be doing that here, you're going to have to lower the tariffs or rework it. But the overall point is we want to onshore manufacturing. But you could say, and a legitimate criticism, and this is in good faith, of the current policy could be, if you don't get a deal done by the end of the year, you're going to have to rework it, because if you're going to have the inputs for manufacturing tariffed and they're expensive, and it's going to hurt small businesses, that could be a little bit of a problem. But the end product result of certain goods, yes, those should be selectively tariffed to make sure that we could protect the industry. That's what it should do. And yes, make sure that it's going to be something that can impact the overall economy for better. You want to raise revenues. It's a good way to raise revenues, especially if those are like more luxury items. So it's not so much of like a regressive tax, or it's like a one-time thing. Like you buy a phone, I would pay $100 extra on an iPhone, or $200 extra on a television if it meant that it was made in the United States. And I think a lot of people would too, because it makes sense. So there's also another side of this. You have the GDP growth is very high. You have the stock market at near record highs across the indexes, whether it's Dow, NASDAQ, S&P, you name it. You have a stock market that's doing pretty well, and the interest rates probably do get cut, and maybe that does uptick the inflation rate a little bit, but it's kind of like a give and take sort of thing from what we're about to see, and that's definitely going to bolster the markets even further if you do get that rate cut, which it seems like it's likely. The question is how much, because people, they can't afford a home, and that's a whole nother problem. And it's not a Trump problem. I don't even know if it's necessarily a Biden problem. I think he made it a lot worse. I think Trump is trying to make it better. I think the way to do it is cut work visas and get a lot of these illegals out of the country, and Trump definitely, in terms of the illegals part, yeah, he's done a good job so far. It's not just in the raw deportation numbers, but also the self-deportation numbers, which are backed up through various studies. But when it comes down to the overall work visas, you need to cut those significantly and make sure that we can do what we can do to onshore jobs where you don't have companies cheating, because the companies will cheat, the corporations will cheat, and they'll go to other places because they can. And they need to have an incentive to keep certain jobs here that can be here. I mean, they talk about the service economy, and then they just send the service economy to India. And that's a whole nother problem regarding India. And Trump finally is taking a stand on India, which is good, in my opinion, obviously. So again, I said this, ending the tariffs are not going to fix magically the economy. It would maybe marginally lower costs on select goods. I think manufacturing inputs like steel, it's kind of like it's a give and take, because we don't want to lose manufacturing jobs to preserve, other steel jobs. We want to make steel, and we want manufacturing too. So it's a tough line that we have to kind of straddle. And I think the end goal with Trump and the trade deal with China would kind of have a rate that's set, that's friendly to both of those things, to protect our steel industry and other American industry, because we don't want the price of steel to be ridiculous. But again, I think another problem is AI and incompetence in general. You have a lot of incompetent people hiring people. That's definitely going to lead to less people being hired. When it comes down to AI, you have a lot of jobs that are just, possibly being, at the moment, and maybe it's a short-term thing and it's a bubble, like you had the dot-com bubble, you have the AI bubble, and maybe you're going to have, it's just like the cotton gin. The cotton gin, they say, would end slavery, and then it actually increased the demand for slavery over time because of how many people that you needed. Oh, we're going to be able to have a much bigger output, and you name it. That's, it was a major contested thing at the time, the cotton gin, which kind of revolutionized the industry and kept slavery going on longer in the South than the United States, was actually created by an abolitionist. It's not something a lot of people know or talk about, but it's true. And it is a problem. It's not a Trump thing. I mean, if anything, we're probably more likely to get restrictions with a Trump than with somebody not named Trump. But it is going to affect a lot of white-collar jobs. It's going to get worse. And again, you can't even make a phone call. You can get connected easier than ever. You should be. Social media, all this stuff. You can't make a phone call, talk to customer service. It's either somebody in India who barely speaks English, or it's AI. And it's a problem. And Donald Trump has recently, and his administration, have moved to tariff India, possibly a major crackdown on call centers and call center scammers, which are a major problem. We saw a lot of progress in his first term with the spam notifications. I believe that happened during his first term. I don't think it happened during Biden, but that definitely caused a lot less of a problem regarding the scammers. So you have that. And then also we have to get to 2026 updates as well. We didn't update the lower third. We had the other lower third. Then we'll go to this one. Yes, there we go. So quick water break, and we will be right back. All right, so 2026 updates. We have several. This is an important one right here. We have the Democrats in total delusion. They're in delusion mode over Kentucky because they think Andy Beshear running for Senate in Kentucky is going to win them that seat. And I think that's insanity. I think that that's incompetence. I think it's malpractice on their part. I think it would be funny. But Republicans ran Larry Hogan and gave him a bunch of money in 2024. And it's a similar thing. Oh, he won a governorship in a state of the opposing party in power. He lost by 12. Phil Bredesen lost by 11. He was really big in Tennessee. I mean, he last won his election like 12 years before he ran, but he won every county. He won it by like 30. He was crafted in a lab to be the greatest Democrat candidate possible for the state of Tennessee. And guess what happened? He lost to Marsha Blackburn by 12 points in a year that's probably bluer than what we're about to see next year. So Democrats think they can do this in Kentucky and win. And it's like, are they trying to prevent him from running for president too, so they can get their guy Newsom in there? Because now they're convinced Newsom's their guy, and Wes Moore is saying he's not running for president. That is a little bit iffy because sometimes candidates say that. DeSantis said, I'm not running. He didn't say, I won't run. Politicians can never give a straight answer. I hate that, but it's true. And when they're not doing it, it does lead to some skepticism. Maybe he's leaving the door open. Maybe he's going to run. Maybe he's not. I probably was most afraid of him. Newsom is somebody that I think is going to be very annoying, like Kamala Harris was, but I think he'd be pretty easy to defeat. I don't think he's that smart. I think that a lot of it is fluff. He does his like sociopath, used car salesman shtick. I mean, it works on some people. It works on Democrat voters. But if you look at his electoral history, he's not very good at winning his own state by a big margin against a nobody. I don't know how that's going to translate to Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin, especially Arizona or Nevada, when so many people have fled his state and have voted Republican in those latter two states. So I don't exactly know what he's trying to do when it comes down to, I'm running, I'm the good candidate. Democrats are trying to rig the primary for him the way they did it against Bernie with Biden in 2020 or the way that they did it against Bernie with Hillary in 2016. This party has not had a serious primary since 2008. 2012 will give him a pass because, Obama was an incumbent. But 2016, Bernie never had a chance. I mean, he's crazy too. He caves to their establishment. He's a useful idiot. He just is a little bit more left economically than they are. I think socially they're on the same page pretty much. But you have Bernie Sanders. They rigged it against him. And then 2024, they basically did the same thing. They threw out their primary and just handed it on a silver platter to Kamala Harris and lost. Are they trying to do the same thing with Newsom? I don't know. I think he's going to get challenged. I think AOC is going to run. I think Buttigieg is going to run, most likely. I don't believe that you are going to see those candidates beat him in a primary at the rate things are going if Democrats really want him to be the favorite. And I don't think he's capable of winning a general election. I don't believe he is. Now, the economy might possibly keep it in play. But if the economy improves slightly or just noticeably, wages have gone up under Trump. They don't talk about real wages going up under Trump, but it's true. Of the people that have jobs, they're getting increases. I mean, the GDP is increasing substantially. It would make sense that you would see real wages start to take off and start to rise. So, they're going up. Maybe we see a better economy. I think we do. And if we do, I don't think that Gavin Newsom is going to stand a chance because that would be his one issue. But here's the deal. Cost of living is going to be an issue anyways. I'm sure it will be. Democrats spent the last 4 years trying to say it wasn't a problem. Now they actually are pretending to care about it. Gavin Newsom's state has the worst inflation, the worst cost of living out of any state in the union, and they think running the guy who's presided over that is going to be, lead them to victory nationwide. I think it's a horrible move on their part. But he owns Blumph. He owns the cons. Okay, well, then we'll see how that plays out when it comes down to the election time, because, you're not Donald Trump. You don't have the ability. You have an aura. It's not the same, and it's not really particularly good or going to sit well with people. I think they're going to find it a little bit creepy once they catch on, if they haven't caught on already, which I believe a lot of them have. So let him just go on. Let him do his thing. And it's not going to end up being too well for him at the rate things are going. So in Texas, you have a primary coming up, and you have Colin Allred, who ran for Senate and lost. And Democrats were ready to anoint him their nomination, trying to clear the field, which is smart in a race like this. And Republicans have gotten a lot better at that. And then you have a primary between an incumbent rhino in John Cornyn and Ken Paxton, who's a little bit controversial, but way better, would be a great senator. And he's kind of like a more conservative, like Huey Long, with his like corruption that they, the corrupt leadership in Texas tries to go out there and hit him with the, oh no, this is the real corrupt guy thing. It doesn't work necessarily as well as they think it does come general election time, but Democrats are going to spend a lot of money there. We understand that it's a midterm year, and Ken Paxton is somebody that, I wouldn't say that he has the biggest underperformance history, but the whole impeachment thing and the affair scandal might impact him a few points with some independent voters, and he is very much a staunch conservative, I think more so than like a Cruz, but he's more likable than a Cruz. So again, I think likely Republican is fair, but Democrats now they want to run other people. So now they have a primary on their hands. You had Colin Allred, he was going to get it. Now it's James Tallarico. This guy's like Pete Buttigieg if he was straight, but he's also simultaneously gayer than Buttigieg. Like, he's just a clown. He's like one of these people. He'll try to like lecture like Christians on their faith selectively, the way these liberals tend to do it. He's a scumbag. He's a clown. Ken Paxton, I mean, maybe they'll say, oh, well, he'll do it effectively to Paxton because of Paxton's affair or whatever. But, I don't think it's going to land with voters when it comes down to policy as much as these people think, because that's kind of what these races have come down to. And Texas is a very red state. And the guy is a smarmy lunatic. He's not going to do as well. I think he'd do horrible with Hispanic voters in the state. I think he would do atrocious. I think that he doesn't have much appeal to black voters either. At least Colin Allred might have some. And Democrats do need turnout to be high enough among those groups to win. And I don't think they're going to get it up there. So they'll have this competitive primary. Whoever wins it's going to be scathed. We understand that. And they're going to go up against Paxton or Cornyn. Hopefully Paxton. We'll see what happens in that primary. But they thought they were so united. Turns out that they were not as united as they thought. So we'll get to the super chats. I understand that we're running a little bit late for some people, and that's fine. But we've got 11 of them. Let's see if we can get to 20. Jay Harold says he's 67 years old, conservative, and his son showed him my channel and that I'm very good and that Trump has restored the United States, stood by Israel and deported criminals. I don't know. Is this a real super chat? Because like I feel like I've seen this guy before, for one, and for two, the 60, I don't even know what the 67 thing is. I hear everyone's talking about 67. Oh, it's so funny. I don't get it. It's like a TikTok thing or something. So I don't know if he just wants me to say it. I think that's what it is. I think it's like he could be trolling, but I do appreciate the super chat, but I don't understand the 67 thing. So if somebody could explain that to me very basically, I think I could get a better grasp on that. But American Nerd 1776 says modern day libertarians are a joke. Well, they don't understand power and politics. You can't have liberty without order. You can't have peace without strength. You can't have freedom without people that are self-governing. You can't have it. They want to live in a fantasy land that doesn't exist and revolve their entire ideology about making the government smaller, which I think in some areas we can agree with that. But I don't know. I mean, some of these people like Rand Paul, it's very selective, very selective. Roku Fan 1835 says football season is back. That is true. That is true. Football season is back. XJ Cherokee Bear says Brian Krasenstein is a girly man. American Nerd 1776 says, can we primary out Rand Paul in 2028? Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I said I wouldn't mind it. I mean, the guy is overstayed his welcome to the point where he's gone crazy. The TDS is unreal. And when it gets in the way of you doing your job, you need to reconsider being in this party at this point. It's not a matter of it being like a cult or something like that. If you're going to just be contrarian and you won't vote for the nominee, I don't think that's the thing. Criticize Trump. But if you're actively going out there and not endorsing Donald Trump over dumb stuff, very dumb stuff, even after he speaks at your Libertarian convention, teams up with RFK Jr., who he was willing to give a lot of credence to supporting, and now he wants to go out there and act like he's above the whole fray and he's a part of the party. No, I honestly, censure the guy. If you're not endorsing your nominee in the most crucial election of our lifetimes, why be a part of it? Why not get censured? Why not get primaried? That's a problem. It's just like the impeachment stuff. It's just the same concept in a way. Because at least the impeachment, it wouldn't have mattered. That vote wouldn't have mattered. Endorsements can, have some pull. Okay, either way, it's bad. I'm not saying that either one is good. But now he probably would vote to impeach Trump if Trump gets up there a third time for impeachment. He would. Massey would vote too. And then he would say, well, it's actually about this thing. And it's like, okay, you're siding with the enemy. If you side with the enemy this much, you are the enemy. You are the problem. So American Nerd 1776 says, we also offered Admiral Yamamoto without due process. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things we don't do for due process. We didn't have due process for bombing Japan. Oh, we didn't, when we invaded Normandy without due process. You understand that past a certain point, you look like a moron. And I'm tired of this loser mindset on the right, because it's like you have problems. And yes, I understand not everything is going to be perfect, and the left is going to die on certain hills that will bite them in the rear end maybe later than sooner on certain things. But it is true that when you have criminals and gang members in your country and you get them out and you're siding with these people, you are siding with the enemy most cases. This is not like, oh, they gunned down a citizen in the United States just randomly because they suspected he was a criminal. That is not something that is along these lines. And they'll do the same thing about federalizing the Guard when it actually has worked. It's made these communities safer. That's it. If adding more police into an area that's very crime heavy, lowers crime and doesn't kill people and saves lives, it's a good thing. It is. That's something that's good. I don't understand why that has to be something that gets spun into, oh, this is like a very big negative and this is a problem. I just don't really understand these people. They hate. I can think of no other explanation than they hate you and they hate this country. They're just so Trump deranged that it makes them follow that mindset. It makes them follow that pattern. So Dustin Carner says Kentucky's a southern former blue state of the solid South. I'm aware. That's not really like a libertarian breeding ground for politicians based on how you described it, though. Magic Show says get Massey and MTG out of Congress. Yeah, Massey is definitely one that I would like to get out of Congress. MTG, I'm not really a fan. She at least will get some things right, and then she'll get other things, like she'll die on some strange hills. I don't think if she gets to the point where she starts crossing Trump, then I think her career will be over. Because the establishment does not like her, even though she's caved to the establishment on many fronts. And then now she's trying to have it both ways. Enough is enough. Seriously, enough is enough. Alexander Bratt says maybe the New York State governorship will flip in 26 or 30. Yeah, I think that the governorship has a shot at flipping in 26, but I don't think it's that likely. I know Hochul's not popular, but she's kind of hit a wall in terms of her unpopularity and disapprovals. And I don't really see a Republican candidate that, I mean, Stefanik might give her a run for her money, but I don't think it's going to be it's going to end up being like Zeldin all over again in 22, but maybe in the future, given the way the state's going. Lazy A92 says, I keep hearing about low tourism numbers in Las Vegas. If that trend continues, do you think it will have a large impact on how Nevada votes in 2028? Well, I think that Vegas has low tourism now, and it's had it for a while. It's going down because people aren't going to gamble if they don't have expendable income. I mean, it makes sense. People don't have as much expendable income. They're budgeting. It's a problem, and that needs to change for sure. But, I mean, it's like I don't really know what to tell you on that front, but I think that it could. I mean, if time goes on and they blame Trump for it, which, again, is ridiculous because I don't understand how tariffs would impact if people are going on a vacation or not when the inflation rate is the same as it was the previous month or lower than it was the previous month, but tourism is declining in Vegas. So could be a Vegas-specific problem. I don't know if it's going to have much impact, but it's been going down for a while for sure. It's not going to impact Lombardo and his chances of victory because he's an incumbent, he's popular. That's not going to change, but I think it's going to, if time goes on, it could be an issue. I think that because of all the Californians that are still moving to Nevada, I think Nevada is just going to be tough for Democrats moving forward in general. But if it's like a bad year for Republicans, then maybe Democrats could capitalize on that and get it back. Jadeep McSwag says, thoughts on the term little gup? It's like little bro. I guess that's another one of those terms. It makes sense, I guess. I mean, it's like a term for a baby fish of sorts. American Nerd 76, his thoughts on Iowa's Senate race for next year. Well, it's definitely a Senate race that's going to be one to watch for sure. I mean, you have I guess you would say, wait, actually, Iowa? Nah, actually, it's not going to be that close. I don't know why I was thinking of North Carolina for a second when you said that. I know it's getting late. But Iowa, it's going to definitely not be that close because you're going to have this primary done with after Trump's endorsement of Ashley Hinson, and it's over. And she's going to win, and she'll win by 10, and she may not be that great, but I don't think really anybody in the Iowa bench is that great of both a candidate to prevent it from being competitive and for, this race to kind of like be just put away with a decent candidate. She's like better than some of the other people like Marionette Miller Meeks, for example, in both fronts. So I'm fine with it. She's better than Joni Ernst. Keep her in there. It's not going to be competitive. So yeah, it should be good. Dustin Carner for 2 says, Georgia, 26 Republican chances. Are you a paleo conservative? And Michigan. So we'll cover, we'll start with Michigan. I think the governor's race, like I said, you have possibly a three-way race. The Detroit mayor's running. He's going to do better among Democrats, I believe, than Republicans. And then you have John James, strong Republican. Party fatigue at the state level kicking in. You have a Democrat who's going to be generic, not as strong as Whitmer. So I think there's a strong shot of a Republican pickup as it stands now. As for what's going to happen with the Senate race, I think, again, it's going to be a close one. Mike Rogers, he lost last time, but the Democrat opposition is going to be much weaker. Now, the base may not show up as much, but I feel like the ticket splitters are some of that group that's less likely to show up, or the people that checked the box for Trump but didn't vote down ballots. So, I mean, it's a give and take for sure. It really is. I think Rogers is somebody I have grievances with, but I think he's a strong candidate for the state in a midterm year. And I think Haley Stevens is awful. Abdullah Sayed is awful. McMorrow, I think, is less awful, but I think that she has flaws too. So I think it's going to be close. I mean, Democrats, if I had to pick a winner right now, I probably, my gut feeling would be that they'd pull it out, but I think that Republicans have a real chance depending on what happens in that Senate race. Now, Georgia, you have a Democrat incumbent, and it's kind of like the opposite problem where Republicans have the advantage in midterm years in Georgia, but they don't have a candidate and they have a divided primary. So who knows what's going to come of that? But if Mike Collins consolidates the field early, and wins by a lot in the primary and mounts a strong campaign, gets his fundraiser numbers up, he's going to do a hell of a lot better than I think a lot of people think. I don't understand the hate for Collins as a candidate. Herschel Walker obviously had some skeletons in his closet. I don't know. I mean, Mike Collins doesn't really come off like the type of guy that does. Basically, the knock on him is, oh, he's funny on Twitter. And then I looked at Wikipedia because, they're written by liberals. They chronologically have all the controversies. And you read through it and it's like, there's nothing really to attack him on here besides occasional memes. It's like I've seen worse from Democrat politicians in swing states that won by a lot. So it's not really the end of the world. So especially Georgia, which is like a base turnout state more so than a state where you try to peel off independence. I think that Herschel Walker was just, with the scandal, was just uniquely weak. And I don't think that Ossoff is that strong. I don't think he's as strong as Warnock, especially among black voters. So we'll see. But let's see. Alexander Bratt says in New York State 26, the GOP might get it with it. Look, if it happens, it happens. I'd be a big fan of it. I'm just saying I haven't seen enough yet. Now, it depends on the environment. I don't think we're headed towards a blue wave, but it is true. I'm not going to sit up here and lie to people and say the economy right now is in a position where Republicans are going to win voters based on it. It's not fair. It's not Trump's fault necessarily, but that's the state of affairs. Now, there's plenty of reasons to believe it can pick up. There's plenty of reason to believe that we could have an RNC ahead of the midterms, which could consolidate support within the party and energize and drive up turnout. And Donald Trump is going to have his 250th anniversary, which is so good that he's in there and not the Kamala Harris disaster averted in 2024. But the midterm years are decided by the voters that are propensity matters and anger matters, and that does seem to be a lot of people on the other side more so than us, because the left has this religious attachment to hating Trump and voting in every little election. Republicans don't have that, and as a result, they only vote where they think it counts, but it almost always counts. I'm not talking about a special election with 20% turnout, because I don't look into those over performances as meaning much. But midterm years, it's going to be a little bit different. We'll see. It depends on party competency. Get out all the Republican voters you can. But again, how do they vote? How do the independents vote that are registered Republicans and registered independents? Obviously, correlation matters. Causation is a little bit different depending on the type of Republican or registered Republican to show up. So got to be careful, but drum up turnout. Got to focus on areas we need to win and run candidates that are strong. And I think we've done a good job with the candidate thing, and the Democrats' favorables are in the gutter too. So there's plenty of reason to believe that the Republicans can capitalize on it. American Nerd 76 says, think Murkowski is going to do what her dad did in '02, run for governor, resign, and appoint someone. Well, they can't appoint someone really bad, because if she appoints somebody that's really bad to the Senate, there's a very good chance they lose a primary. And it might be one of those cases where the current primary system works to our benefit, as much as I hate it, because that person is not going to be Lisa Murkowski. That person is going to have a lot of problems, and that problem is name recognition, name ID, and if she appoints somebody that's bad, that person's going to go down. Now, she might appoint Dunleavy or somebody that the party agrees on, and if she does that, yeah, her being a governor would be beneficial. As a governor, she'll be. It's not about that. She has more opposition just within the state legislature as a governor that will stop any weakness. At a minimum, nothing would get done. But it's for the country, for the state of Alaska, I feel like if anything should be a better fit at the state level, and then actually have a real Republican at the actual level that counts and level that matters. Alaska's had Democrat governors before. It's not a very partisan state in terms of how it operates. So, people are saying, well, you can't have her. It's about striking a deal. Do we want her there forever? Do you want her in the Senate for another 8 years? Or do you want her gone now? I think the rest of the country wants her gone now. And she'd have to win the governor's race to get out of the Senate too. So it's important that people vote. I mean, Trump probably would endorse her at that point because he would see the fact that it's a net benefit. Net benefit for his agenda, net benefit for the Republican Party. And he might strike that deal to get a better appointee. So literally God for 5 says Dan Osborne is running again for Nebraska Senate. Should we be... No, he's running against Ricketts. Ricketts should beat him easily. I think it's like 5 to 10 points for Ricketts. American Nerd 1776 says, what if Murkowski appoints Peltola to the Senate? I don't think she would. I don't even know if she can. Sometimes they make it be somebody of the same party. But when it comes down to the Peltola thing, I mean, she would lose. So honestly, if she did appoint Peltola, I think Peltola would be very likely to lose in 2028, where that might even be a selling point over the current state of affairs of Murkowski for 2 years. So I'm not entirely that opposed to it. Just thinking about the long term, the short term wouldn't be good, but I mean, she's barely good anyways now. So it would be strategic. When it comes to voting time, yeah, Peltola needs to get out of the way. So Mask McGee for 2 says Kentucky's a pro-Israel state. Massey's a well, I think it's deeper than the Israel stuff. Look, AIPAC has its issues, but the thing is that if, let's say you have a bill that secures the border and actually does 90% of Trump's agenda, but it includes a minute amount of foreign aid to Israel, and every Republican votes yes except him because the perfect is made the enemy of the good, that's a little bit of a problem. If it gets in your way of doing your job for such a fringe issue for most people, I feel like either way. I mean, most people that have a strong opinion on the issue in Kentucky, you're right. I mean, you have a lot of evangelicals that are very pro-Israel. It's not. People say it's about the Jewish vote. It's not really about the Jewish vote so much as it is about the evangelical vote for why Republicans are pro-Israel. But also, I think over time you'll see a little bit of a lessening or a softening of a stance because younger generations just tend overall in every single religious, every single ethnic group, every single party tend to support a more like populist policy, less foreign aid, less intervention there, whatever. And sometimes some people overcorrect for it and have really dumb takes. But as for Massey, he's just one of these people that it's like, he says things like, AIPAC can fund me as much as they want. So it's like, is it really about principled opposition to, big money in politics or whatever? I like that he tries to claim. Like, I don't know. But either way, it's like you'll have some people that say he's like funded by Qatar. I don't know if that's true. It could be true. It may not be true. I know he's definitely getting a lot of donations from people on the left based on his opposition to Trump. And that's my main concern with him, more so than, he's not really willing to double foreign. It's not about the foreign aid. I don't really support foreign aid. I support, conditionally, you got to make deals, but I also understand pragmatism. I understand that, if we could push a button and not send $1 overseas, I would. Realistically, that's probably not going to happen. You have to change the system and you have to be in the system to change it. But it is a very small dollar amount. And even the donations from certain lobbies are a very small overall amount. And I'm not a fan of a lot of big money in politics. I think that their meddling in primaries has become a problem. And I don't think big money should be involved in primaries. That would be something that I would say more so than the general, because the grassroots should decide the primary. And I'm not saying that there can't be any, but there should be a cap, especially for certain interest groups, because certain interest groups can just buy a politician in a certain place. But overall, it's like, it's not just because of the lobby for why Republicans do support Israel. And a lot of people do get that wrong. It's mainly because of their own voter base. So, and as time changes, they're probably going to soften. I'm not saying they're going to be anti-Israel. I'm just saying that the current like blind, like NPC level, like you can't say anything negative or you're going to be kicked out of like that mindset is going to fade. And I think it's a good thing it's fading, because we have to have dialogue. We have to have, debate about certain topics, any topic. You have people that do the opposite on the other side, but you got to have discussions about things, and the best ideas are going to prevail. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a correction, but that's kind of what we're seeing. And people learn from mistakes on certain things, and that's good. But let's see. But when it comes down to Massey, he doesn't understand politics. That's my issue with him, and that's the whole main point. If you don't understand how power works, you're not going to be an asset to this movement that seeks to restore it where it belongs. So if anything, he's inadvertently helping the deep state that he wants to crush, because we realistically can't just snap a finger and it's gone. And I tell the same thing to some Trump voters who are disillusioned because they don't have everything they want, or not every war has been settled or whatever. And I understand the problems, and this does have to come down to a trust the process mindset. Yeah, trust the plan, laugh at it, 4D chess, laugh at it, scoff at it. But that's literally what it is. That's how you win. That's literally how you win. American Nerd 1776 says, thoughts on New Hampshire and Chris Sununu's brother. Well, I think that it would be a flippable race if he jumped in. And I hope Scott Brown bows out, because that primary is not going to be pretty. And Brown can go out there and compete and win one of those congressional seats if the year is good for Republicans. But when it comes down to the Senate race, it's like you got to go out there and make sure that we're able to win. So, yeah, the guy is better than his brother. He is not as much of a rhino. He's not perfect, but he's not nearly like as bad, and New Hampshire's not a red state. That's what I'm saying about perfect, the enemy of the good. I mean, you had some people 2010 in Delaware, you had a candidate. This is a guy who donated to Trump. He passed away recently, and then he ran against a Tea Party candidate who said she was a witch or something, and he won by 15. She actually did overperform technically, but it was not good, because Republicans at the time, you could have had a Susan Collins in Delaware, but better, because Susan Collins didn't back Trump at all. But no, you had to throw it away to somebody who voted for Hillary Clinton. She was a Hillary Clinton supporter in come 2016, because she's just not mentally stable. So that always irritates me. I was never really a fan of that situation. But yeah, Mike Castle, he would have been a good senator, and they kind of threw it away. So I tell people this: it's like, you have to. It has to be the best person that can win. Keyword is can win. Like Mike Collins in Georgia, we could debate the electability thing, but I think he can win, and he historically has overperformed, including in the suburbs. Although, yeah, it was a low-profile race, but he is somebody that the base will like. You have to use the baseline. Midterm year, Herschel Walker. Is this guy a better candidate than Herschel Walker? Yes, he is. Then that pretty much answers your question. And if anything, he has the trucker appeal. As for the whole suburbs thing, he represents part of the suburbs, and he does pretty well in them. Maybe that would change if he's at the top of not the top of the ticket, but running for Senate. But bottom line is, I'm not saying he's going to win, but it's going to be close, and he's not a bad candidate, and he gives you a shot. The other guy is, his dad was big in the state, and that's his claim to fame. Another football guy. It didn't work out well last time, but, I'm not convinced that guy is super electable. We'll see if Trump makes his decision. We'll see if there's going to be more polling on that. We hit our goal, so we will read regular chat. And by the way, we have to read our top fans. Number 5, Jay Harold. Number 4, Dustin Carner. I think he just went up to number 3 with the super chat. Number 3, Sneed and Feed. Number 2, Alexander. Number 1 is the American Nerd 1776, who sent in the most super chats. And feel free to send in super chats, even though we've hit our goal, if you want to support the channel. But Dustin Carner for 5 says, do you find it bad when some America First people put down historic American identities in favor of a national one? I'm proud to be Southern. Well, I think regional identity is fine. I think it's important to an extent. I think people that get too wrapped up in the whole Civil War LARPing are missing the point. I think it's a big distraction. It doesn't help us. It doesn't get us anywhere. We're going to have to win all over the country for sure, but Southern pride is real. It can exist, and it definitely does exist for sure. I mean, you have the Midwestern identity. You have the identity. I mean, you have regional identities in the United States. There's local identities. I mean, there's all sorts for sure. So there's nothing wrong with identifying with more, but America does have to come first in terms of preserving the republic as it should be preserved, and making sure that we can unite on the common goals regarding immigration and foreign policy and economic policy, trade, etc. It's all important. It's all important. So what do I think about Vance? Well, the thing about Gates is he's controversial. I think that you can have a VP that's solid, that is not as controversial, where they become a distraction. So I don't think it would be Gates. Marco Rubio is probably going to just take on the job of VP. Maybe he'll be VP and Secretary of State. I don't see why he couldn't do both of them, because maybe there's a constitutional argument I'm missing why you can't. But the guy has 4 jobs. He's a good Secretary of State. It's a very prominent position. The vice president is just, waiting in line, essentially. They'll break a tie in the Senate if they have to. And, it's a ceremony. It's largely a ceremonial, or it's like backup quarterback. If your backup quarterback can play tight end or wide receiver, then why not? Why not give him a job? But I don't know. Rand Paul made he did. Oh, this guy's accused. No, the guy is obviously a drug cartel member who's not a citizen. He doesn't deserve due process any more than Osama bin Laden deserved due process. And then these people will say, well, he did deserve due process. And then it's like, you kind of lose the argument at that point. So, who are the 2 guys in the background? If you're talking about the screen, you have the Texas Senate primary on the Democrat side, Colin Allred and James Tallarico running for Senate, most likely. So Democrats are going to have a competitive primary. Sean Jaramillo says, do you think the Kansas governor primary would hurt Republicans? They're going to have a primary on the Democrat side, so better to clear a field earlier than later, but I don't know. The Kentucky Senate primary, that's what I'm a little bit worried about. How's Nate Morris doing? Because Trump met with Andy Barr at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, he meets with all the candidates, so I'm not saying it means much, but I think Don Jr. supports Nate Morris. Charlie Kirk supports Nate Morris. Nate Morris has to win. He's much better. So will Vance do better or worse than Trump in Wisconsin? Probably. I'd say maybe better, because I think that, so long as turnout is high enough, I'd say better. I think when it comes to persuasion, I think he'd do better, because they kind of have this, softer personality type thing. And I think Trump and Vance, they probably, because he's more populist when it comes down to policy, he'd be able to do a little bit better. But when it comes down to turnout, that's really what matters. I think it's going to be high turnout across the board, and I think Vance is going to go out there and probably win the state if the, like I said, the economy, the Rust Belt is very economic dependent. So, and Milwaukee is very corrupt when it comes down to 3 a.m. They were in 2024. Donald Trump just beat it. A lot of people were saying before the election that we had to worry about this, and we did, but again, I think that the main takeaway is you can't be too wrapped up before election. You got to play the game you're in and try to win it, and then go after these people afterwards, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do it without that Supreme Court. So Real Texan says, not true, Dems nominate for governor. If it's, perennial candidate Beto, one of the congressmen that gets drawn out, probably. You're right about that. So growth of Atlanta and suburbs and growing, I don't know about, it could be D+5, but I wouldn't go that far. Not yet. It's going to be very close in 26 and very close in 28. And as for the growth, it's slowed. All growth is slowed. People are not moving as much as they were because the economy in 2018 was like firing on all cylinders. Now, a little bit of a different story, but hopefully we can get it there. And that's, I think, what the goal of the Trump administration needs to be. More drilling. Find a way to tweak the tariffs. If you don't see positive ROI by the end of the year, tweak the deals. I think that's the long-term plan. But when it comes down to 2026, even if the long-term plan pays dividends, and it might, you don't want the dividends to come too late if you're talking about 2026. And maybe Democrats have a decent year and then Republicans have a phenomenal 28. So it just depends. It is a process that needs to be trusted, but people have the right to speculate, because I think that, and I said this on X earlier, there's a difference between the criticism you see of Donald Trump. And 99% of Trump criticism on the so-called right, and obviously this encompasses the left as well, these people are scumbags and they want Trump to fail, and they are cheering on any possible little failure, and they act like lunatics and try to say, oh, it's a scam, and say Kamala's better and all this stuff. And then there's, people that will say, maybe this thing could be handled better, or this thing. And it's a wide array of difference. But you have so many people that are in, like 99% of the criticism is in that first group, to the point where any legitimate criticism also gets drowned out, which if anything might help Trump among like the real world voters. But I don't think it's really productive that's the way the ecosystem is. And the political ecosystem is a disaster compared to where it was in Trump's first term, even though Trump had a weaker first term than I think his second term when it comes down to raw policy and even like the legislative stuff. He expanded upon his tax bill, and then he funded ICE and did all these things, and it's just he was left a mess. He's trying to clean it up. But if you don't clean it up fast enough in the midterms, we've seen what happens. I don't think Republicans are going to lose the Senate because there's no path for Democrats. And thankfully in the House, Republicans have a pretty high floor too. So even if they do lose the House, which would not be good, it wouldn't be by much. So Trump does have that buffer. That's true. But like this talk of like an expanded Senate majority, it can happen, but like it's not going to happen unless you see more, if you see more positive developments given the way these midterm years go. So I hope that we see some positive developments in the economic front. So we talked about the job numbers already. And again, why are we having H-1Bs and work visas at a time when we have more jobs of Americans we have more jobless Americans than job postings? It's ridiculous. So yeah, something does need to change. That you can't deny that. I don't believe the administration is denying it. And it's not like a tariff thing necessarily, obviously. It's been going on for a while. But now we're really seeing reality, and they're letting reality be seen because they had to have the smokescreen the previous 4 years. So it's ridiculous. If anything, it's a little bit of a scamming of the American public on their part. But again, things have to be reworked as well. I think that two things can be true. So the bottom line is I'm not rooting for Trump to fail, and the other people are. So I don't want to be associated with those people. And any like good faith criticism, like I said, is going to be completely just drowned out. And it's not good that it is. But I trust Scott Bessent. As for Lutnick, I don't think he knows what he's doing. I hope he's right. But that guy with the coming out with all like the, it's like, how did he even calculate these reciprocal? Thankfully, Trump didn't go through with it all, but it's like, I support tariffs. I support protectionist policy. It's America first policy, but it has to be done right. That's the bottom line. So Trump has tweaked it. It's been done better, but we got to keep reworking it for sure until we get it right. And then there may be some short-term losses. There might be. But it is about the long-term gain. The question is, will we see the gain in time? And I hope we do, for the sake of the country and for the sake of Trump and for the sake of the movement and the sake of the future. Because if, let's say, things go poorly with the tariffs, then the Republican establishment is going to try to take the nomination away in 2028, and they're going to try to give it to Nikki Haley, and she'll run a campaign of free trade and work visas and amnesty and all this stuff that J.D. Vance is against. And all of the Trump movement successes and shifting the Overton window are going to be gone in an instant. It has to be protected in some way, shape, or form. So Base Cat says, if Dems win the House, they'll waste their power trying to impeach Trump, ruining their 20. Yeah, they will. And again, I tell people this. It may not be the worst thing in the world, but you have to vote, especially if you're in a swing state or district, because, you talk about getting the seat back from an incumbent. It can happen, but it's less likely to happen. So we got to make sure that we win and flip as many seats as we possibly can. So what happens if Supreme Court sides with federal courts? And well, that would not be good, because that means that all the tariffs are gone. So, we want to have some protectionist policy. We want the president to have control over his economic policy, not a do-nothing Congress. Yeah, we have checks and balances, but again, the trade policy has largely been set historically by the executive. And when you have a negotiator in there, it just makes sense to let it. This whole judicial review thing has been taken way too far. And if you look at the presidents that have defied it, every single one of them has been very consequential. Top 10 most consequential, if not top 5 consequential presidents. So they can whine, but they're losing. They're the ones that have been perverting the Constitution for a very, very long time. So, hopefully the Supreme Court, it's like you have 2 really good justices that need to retire, and that's a whole nother thing, because if their replacements are not 1-to-1, that's not a great thing. BRGRS for 10 says, would you debate Nick Fuentes? He basically said he would rather have Newsom become president over Vance in 2028. I don't think there'd be much of a point to. I think it'd be a spectacle. I don't do debate spectacles. I haven't really done them. But as for what the whole Vance thing is, I think we've been talking and debating about this for a very long time. If he wants to challenge me directly, maybe it'd be a different situation. But no, he's very wrong. And it's a little bit strange that he's allowed to exist now. He was never allowed to exist. They basically took him off everything. And you look him up on YouTube, and then it's negative, hit piece, negative, hit piece. And now it's positive, 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 positive. Even from leftists, they will use his clips, and they'll try to use them to attack Trump. Oh, even the Trump base, like they'll try to portray him as, it's like the Richard Spencer stuff all over again with this guy. The Richard Spencer, he's speed running the Richard Spencer arc. Oh, we'll support Trump, and then we'll turn against him, and then we'll support the other side when push comes to shove. Oh, it's irony, bro, but it's not irony, bro, but it's just irony, bro. Like, enough is enough. Enough is enough with, it's not necessarily, I don't interact with him, but I see all of his people on social media that just say, oh, no, Newsom is better than Vance because Vance is, he had a close relationship to a guy who donated a ton of money to Trump in 2016, but then they attacked Vance for not supporting Trump in 2016. And that same guy, Peter Thiel, has a close relationship with Gavin Newsom himself, to the point where, no, it's, again, you have the panicans, you have different wings, you have like the fringes of the right that have lost the plot completely, that have lost the plot for years. And it's the dumbest things they get hung up on. Oh, no, Vance can't be good on immigration because his wife is the daughter of Indian immigrants or whatever. But then they also, he's on record supporting Vivek Ramaswamy, and there's clips of it. It's like Donald Trump is not pro-Eastern European immigration or raising their numbers because Melania and multiple wives are from there. Like, they don't understand basic reality. So again, this guy exists as an agitator. That's the main point. They have articles, why Donald Trump should fear Nick Fuentes. And it's like, yeah, well, if you're writing articles like that and you're on the left, what does that say? What does that exactly say? Like, they understand that he's probably an asset of some kind. That's it. Because people that say things like this are morons or assets. It's not about irony. You don't get to claim irony when it benefits you and say you were just kidding and then turn it around. That's not a serious political movement that does that. So whatever. Yeah, the Newsom supporters, all these people. Oh, remember, J.D. Vance is going to turn off voters, and he's so unpopular. He's the only member of either ticket in 2024 to finish in the exit polls with a net positive favorable rating. Net positive. So, yeah. Oh, wait, did I tell you that same guy supported J.D. Vance at his 2022 Senate bid after saying all these same things at the onset of his Senate bid? Which, again, I was skeptical of Vance, too, at the beginning. But I think he proved himself pretty well, and he won the primary, and he won the general, and he's been a great senator, and he's been a great vice president, and I think he'd be a great president just because he happens to, I don't know, he knew some weird, strange guy 10 years ago who funded his Senate primary campaign and hasn't donated a dime to him since. Like, oh, he's in some like lab creation. It's like, I think maybe he was at one point, not because of the Thiel stuff, because Thiel was pro-Trump in 2016. They don't talk about that. He spoke at the RNC. He gave euphoric support to Trump. Didn't support him in 2024 with any financial backing for one reason or another. So again, when it comes down to the Peter Thiel stuff, it doesn't make sense. But Vance was in a lot of neocon think tanks. Some of those think tanks have produced very solid people, but they've also produced people like Bill Kristol, for example. And Vance was friendly with neocons. But all those neocons hate him. They absolutely hate the guy. They view him as a traitor. Similarly to how people in Hollywood will view Trump as like a traitor. Not the same exact thing. Vance is not Trump. We understand that. He's not going to have the same vibe. He has more of like a traditional politician pathway, even though he doesn't have a lot of political experience, which is a good thing. But he made something of himself, and people are like, and you have a lot of people, it's not just them, but there's like a lot of anti-Vance talking points about he went to Yale Law School, so that's bad. And it's like, is him bettering his life and taking an opportunity a bad thing? How is that a bad thing? Donald Trump went to Wharton. Donald Trump has an Ivy League education. A lot of presidents have Ivy League educations. Taking a good education does not make one like an elitist, because we need to go through the system in order to change it. You do. I mean, Steve Bannon has a degree from Harvard. Plenty of people in Trump's administration that are objectively good have like very high-profile degrees from high-profile institutions, and that's a good thing. So, again, the anti-Vance talking points suck. There's no benefit to Gavin Newsom. This whole, but Newsom has like a white family or something. Well, so did Joe Biden. So did Hillary Clinton. So did, the Bush family. It's like, if you actually care about change instead of trying to be contrarian, you can't focus on stuff like that because it's stupid and doesn't get us anywhere at all. So, and guess what? If it's not Vance, it's going to be open borders Gavin Newsom, or on the Republican primary side, probably somebody like a Nikki Haley. And that's not going to be a good thing. So, again, I don't think we really have that many anti-Vance people here, but it's like all the talking points for it's not just those, it's a lot of people. They want to put the DeSimps, if they still exist, thankfully they've been quiet. They will attack because they're still clinging on to the dream of a President DeSantis. And the same people will be like, Vance is not charismatic enough, but then they want Ron DeSantis to be president, and it's like, okay, whatever. Real Texan Politics says Soy Coper's silence on the recent Charlotte incident could come back to haunt him in November. It could. I mean, you have this case where you have a career criminal that stabs a Ukrainian immigrant. Ironically enough, the left doesn't. The one time they don't care about Ukraine is when it impacts Americans here. But they let this criminal go. And again, it is one of those cases. You know, if the races were reversed, the attacker was black, the victim was Eastern European, white. If the races were reversed, yeah, it would be a national news story. It would be riots in the streets, 2020 all over again. But we're not seeing that now. But you know, it's being covered more, which shows that the culture in the Overton window is changing, which is a good thing. Now, how long do we have to wait until people on the left start raising bail money for the murderer? I don't know. I hope it does not happen, but I would not put it past me if they decided to do that. So, okay. Is Kamala still run? She might run. She might run. If the roles were, it does matter though, to a certain degree. It's not a matter of if the roles were reversed. The difference is between that and now is we're actually using power and having people talking about that in the mainstream regarding issues like that. This is not, if a conservative, it's not about that. That's not what we're doing here. It's apples to oranges. Because yes, it is something that does need to be highlighted when it comes down to something like that. Oh, he does have a GoFundMe. They allowed him to have a GoFundMe. Evan G says, do you like Charlie Kirk? I think he's come a long way, yeah. I mean, he's kind of stepped into that role that Tucker Carlson had during the first term to a degree, because he's in the media a lot. He's come around on the right issues, and it's content that is easily clippable, transferable. So I think he's done a good job lately. And his organization, I mean, with the Get Out the Vote stuff was crucial. I think he single-handedly did a lot to change Arizona's trajectory, and I think it's a good thing. So am I still hoping for the Lions? Well, they had a bad game, especially the offense. But, you know, you don't play your starters in the preseason and then you lose in week one under a new system. I'm not surprised. Now, you also are down your offensive coordinator. You're down 2 Pro Bowl caliber interior linemen, replacing them with unproven rookies. It's growing pains. I mean, they still might recover, make the playoffs, but I'm a little bit more disillusioned this year because it might be kind of like the 49ers last year, where they're going to have to go through a reset. They're not going to be as good because the Packers came out swinging, and so long as Jordan Love is healthy, they probably are going to be the favorites to win the division. So maybe that changes. I think the Lions have a good shot to make the postseason. I think they should try to make the postseason. But I don't know, the Steelers-Jets game was really, really good earlier. It was good content, I will say. Aaron Rodgers, he was balling out. And the left hates, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers guy. He's got problems, but the left just absolutely despises the guy for one reason or another. So seeing him win is I've come around to enjoy it. Someone said, shut up. Well, you don't have to be here. I'm answering. This is what the people want. You're one person. There's a lot of people here. I'm not going to make people like football, but this whole you're not talking about politics 24 hours a day. It's well, if you want to be talking about politics at 1 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, I'm sure there's other channels out there you can click on. But I'll talk about what people in chat want to talk about. We got a community here. I'd say it's 99% politics. The second you talk about something else, it's the guns are out. They're all staring at you. But it's this whole bread and circus talking point about sports and stuff like that. It's you could use that for everything. Rome didn't fall because of gladiators. I mean, in terms of a distraction, people are going to seek other hobbies. They do. You may not like them. They may not resonate with you. That's fine. But that's the way it is. So GoFundMe was taken down. It's so hard to be a Republican and a college student. What's your advice? I feel like it's less hard now. It depends where you go. It really depends where you go. So, but I mean, yeah, I feel like when I was an undergrad, it was much harder. But now it's kind of changed because the student bodies have changed. It's much less hostile because a lot of the younger Zoomers do tend to be a little bit more edgier and not happy with the status quo. And a lot of people got red pilled over COVID and a lot of other things. So say what you want about Bannon, but he would be pure content on the... Well, I'd like to see a lot of people run in 28. So long as we unite behind Vance, I don't mind a primary debate early on because I think it would be funny. I think it would be entertaining, and Vance would definitely go. He would definitely show up. So, let's see. Gen Z, yeah, especially younger Gen Z. Gen Alpha is, when they hit voting age, is probably going to be very much, very right-wing. But we're not quite there yet. So I hope we get the same turn. Well, it's a presidential year, so if people know there's an election and Vance runs a good campaign, he's going to win if the economy is halfway decent. And even if it's not, I still think he's got a good shot against Gavin Newsom of all people. It's going to be that's the difference. Is it going to be a close race that could go either way or a Vance slide? That's the fact that that's the question right now is very, very good, and we're 3 years away. Because the entire country has moved to the right. Vance, I think, would do well with young voters because he does tend to be a very youthful guy compared to most other people in politics, and he has some ideas that might be a little bit different than Trump and communicates them well. And he'll do the podcast rounds and all that stuff. And I think Vance really has an opportunity here. Whereas Newsom, it's going to be an intellectual powerhouse against a used car salesman who maybe has an IQ 5 points higher than your average used car salesman. But Vance definitely has the upper hand in the intellect department, and that's huge. And all the people saying he's not a good communicator, I feel like they've eaten so much crow, but you still have these myths that persist because maybe he's just not in front of the media very much, and everybody's just trying to put forward a certain narrative about the situation. How are the gas prices are schizophrenic. Sometimes they'll be $2.49 and sometimes they'll be $2.99. It's just been that way. We need to drill more and finish the war with Russia and Ukraine, because if you get a deal done, then hopefully we can start buying Russian oil again without buying it from other countries who buy it from Russia and then mark it up and sell. It's just bad business. I don't want to rely on Russian oil, but if we have the market open, I say it's a net benefit, and we need to drill more. We have more oil, and that's going to we could lower gas prices, lower energy prices. Trump promised that he would do it. That's another legitimate criticism that maybe he needs to, give out. And again, it takes time, but more licenses. He got rid of some Biden regulations. That's good. But I think that there probably is more we could do. Have I seen The Art of the Surge? I've seen part of it. I've seen part of the documentary. So, if Vance is the first millennial president after the left's whole old, they'll just say white. They'll just get rid of old. They'll just say white men, but they're going to put one up in Newsom. The only DEI, the only acceptable DEI are these minstrel show woke white people they put out there, like Pete Buttigieg and Tim Walz and Gavin Biden, I guess. Real Texan says, I feel like Biden's done so much damage with inflation and such gas prices will probably not go back. Well, people also forget that they were very, very low during COVID because of demand. I don't think we're ever going to get like 98-cent gas again in our lifetimes, realistically. But I do think that getting them down, and I think more importantly, getting wages up, making sure we don't have too many people unemployed. But I mean, of the people that have jobs, make sure that their wages are going up. Make sure we can deal with the AI situation. It's going to take out-of-the-box ideas to get it done. And I think it's a good thing we have an out-of-the-box administration. So there's that. But we gotta do more. We got to do more. Yeah, Newsom presidency would be too cringe to the point where I don't think he would be. It would take a disaster for him to win Pennsylvania or North Carolina. I don't think he wins the other states, and that's what counts, especially Nevada. What's the deal with the jobs report? Well, we covered that early on in the stream, but again, I think that, yeah, they got a new guy. The new guy's not going to fluff the numbers. Bottom line is the numbers just aren't that great. But we've been kind of lying about the numbers under the previous person, under Biden. And now we kind of see it come to full. So we'll see. Russia has rare earth minerals. Well, I mean, Ukraine does have some minerals too, which is why we're trying to get that mineral deal worked in there so we can have them pay off the foreign aid that we've been giving them at ridiculous levels. And you wouldn't have seen that with a Democrat in office or a neocon in office. They would just be handing out the blank checks left and right. And now the aid is more oriented towards arms sales and the mineral deal. So, I mean, I'm not really, if Trump, and again, the thing about the foreign aid, I don't mind Trump using it as a bargaining chip, so long as we're not just handing out blank checks of $100 billion a year, because we got to finish the war. And it's like you have some people that are like, he's just being tough on Putin. It's like, we don't have to be pro-Putin. Putin, this whole base Putin thing is just astroturfed too. He's not our guy. For Russia, he leads them. He's a strong leader. Good for them. He does some unethical things. Zelensky also does some unethical things. But he's not going to be pro-America, and I don't think that Russia is really the example of a uniquely based country. I mean, they let in a lot of immigration. They have a lot of it is true, the abortion rate, all the neocons will bring that up, but I think a lot of that is just because it's a former USSR colony. Ukraine's is high too, but it is still too high. It's not like this whole notion of Russia being some right-wing Orthodox Christian paradise. It's largely a myth. But hate ads on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, I get allegations of putting them in there. It's like YouTube puts them in. I've actually lowered the rate they show up because I guess that's how most of their revenue is going to go through in terms of the ads people get. They get them. I don't mind them showing on replay, but I guess it is annoying. I have YouTube Premium, so I don't see it, but people that don't can be a problem. So has Trump done anything about? He did an executive order, but I don't know if it's going to stand in the courts because states do have that control. We probably should try to do it anyways. And again, strip funding. It's what we did with the drunk driving. What's what we should do with the election laws as well, especially California. They need to be cut off completely until they get their stuff under control. I've always said the whole illegal voting thing is somewhat overblown, but where they send everybody a ballot in California and some people get 5 or 6, it's not overblown in California. In terms of Arizona, it's a lot harder because it's you get a ballot, you have to mail it in, you got to request it. There's not that many illegals on the voter rolls, but California, Utah, Hawaii, I mean, we're doing better in California with the system, but I feel like we could be doing even better without it. Wyatt for 5 says, I'm sick of the Western communist subversion. Look at Fabian society in England and America. It goes back to Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, Wilson was not a good leader. But the way to crack down on it is to have our own long march through the institutions. I know it doesn't sound fun and easy, but it wasn't fun and easy for them. But look at what it's done over time. So the fact that college students are becoming more and more conservative is a good thing. People will say, don't send your kids to college. And it's like, I agree, you shouldn't send your kids to college if they're getting a useless degree. But if they can be something and they're smart enough to achieve success in the real world, they need to be going to college. If anything, the best college they can get into. If your kid gets indoctrinated by some whack job professor, I think that they were never going to be a conservative to begin with. So I think that that's kind of overblown. I think it's a cultural thing why the college demographic is as left moving as it is. So we'll probably end the stream in a couple minutes here. I know it's late, but make sure you guys send in any last-minute super chats. We'll look at how liberal is Phil Scott, like run-of-the-mill neoliberal Democrat levels. It's bad. But yeah, definitely the judges aspect. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. So which states could we pick up next time? I mean, everyone loves to talk about New Jersey. Maybe. I think New Mexico, New Hampshire, any state with new in front of it. Even New York will get closer, hopefully. Hopefully. But you never know. Every state move right. You don't want an election where it goes the other way. I don't think we'll see one where it does. But it's going to be, you got to keep ramping up the registrations. So Newsom would not do well in the swing states. American Nerd 76, and this is a big one we didn't bring up, but which sounds better, War or Defense? Well, it's definitely Secretary of War. Department of Defense has always been stupid. We've always had it as Secretary of War. That's how it should be. It sounds badass. It doesn't mean we're going to start wars in the Middle East. It doesn't mean we're going to be neocons. That's the American tradition. Conquering territory is like, oh, he wants to invade Greenland and the Panama Canal. It's like, it's good that we would have access to that. It benefits the country. It's these dumb gotcha things don't work. They don't. That goes back to the whole, if the other side was no, we're going to flip the script this way. Now the left is saying stuff like that, which is good. It's good the left is saying, could you imagine if Biden did this? It's like, that's kind of how we're winning in a way. Obviously there is an element of principle, but at the same time, we're not willing to deviate where we need to for survival. So someone says they don't think Trump's admin will do well enough to get Vance elected. They have to do. I disagree with that. I think I'm not saying foolproof map, but you need to not lose 2% of ground in Pennsylvania, not lose 4% of ground in North Carolina, not lose 5% of ground in Nevada and Arizona. So just do well enough and it should be good, because the entire country's moved towards the right. And I'm not saying that Democrats can't win. I think that'd be dumb. I think that would be short-sighted. You can't fully underestimate the opponent, but it's at worst for Republicans, it will be a close election. At best, they have an opportunity to really paint the map red. Depends on Hispanic trends and how that's going to go. I don't think that you're really going to see as much drop-off as people would expect under a Vance compared to a Trump. But especially Newsom. Newsom is not a strong candidate with Hispanics. He does not do well with them in California. Doesn't mean it would translate nationwide, but I don't think he would do well nationwide either. Because the only way his brand would work is California. He's like their Ron DeSantis, except He has more charisma, even though it's like rubs people the wrong way. And he also has a horrible track record as governor. So he's not going to be capable, in my opinion, of being the favorite. For sure. Americans have short-term memory. To an extent, they have a short-term memory. I also think that they have intuition. Like the whole Kamala Harris AstroTurf thing was all fake. She never led the polls. She never led her internal polls. They finally admit it when the election's over. Of course they do. So, what happened to mass deportations? They've deported a few 100,000. Like they've deported more people this year than they've deported any year going all the way back to like 2009, which is good. And their self-deportations. We could debate how many there are. But the ICE funding, it's going to ramp up in October from the big, beautiful bill. And that is not going to bode too well. So, do I think it's possible for Vance to win Illinois? Well, if Pete Buttigieg is the nominee, I could maybe see Illinois be in play. Because, again, I don't think he would. Black turnout nationwide would be abysmal. And I think Vance would crack the 20s against Buttigieg. Among men, he'd get close to 40. He'd probably win young black men outright against Buttigieg, but somebody like a Wes Moore, I think, would probably do better than Kamala by a little bit. Maybe not like if you take the generational gap into account. If I was president, what would my cabinet be like? That's a really good question. I don't know if it's one I can answer right now because it's a lot to think about, but I definitely would have to I would orient the cabinet around people that are capable, that are smart, and that would like fit into the goals of the administration. Like labor secretary has to be really good on immigration. I don't know who that would be, but I'm sure somebody could fit that bill. And thankfully, I think you look at the posts coming out of some of these White House department Twitters, X's, you name it, and I feel hopeful for the future because a lot of the people that are in those departments now in the next Republican administration, they'll be higher and higher positions of power, and they work their way up. So we'll see. But all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to end it. Appreciate all the super chats. We had good turnout tonight. We had our goal. We did well. And we had a good conversation with the regular chat. Feels good to do that. I know it's late. We don't have that many people, but it is kind of it's a good vibe, chill vibe. So I will see you guys in the next one. But before we go, like the stream, hit the bell, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Red Eagle out.